By the time you're done here, okay, you'll be in a position to explain what privity of a contract and the doctrine of privity of a contract means, examples of cases and scenarios showing third-party positions in contracts, nor the exceptions to the doctrine of privity. And to start us off, I want you to think about these situations, okay? So I want you to imagine this, picture this basically. Let's say you and your brother are living in this beautiful house. And if you're thinking, look, first of all, I don't even have a brother. Okay, it could be your sister. And if you're also thinking, look, I don't have siblings, and in fact, even if I had them, I wouldn't live with them. Now you're just over imagining things, okay? So it's just an example. So let's move on with the example, okay? Now, you and your friend then, okay? So you and your friend are living in this beautiful house. Since you are the one with some income, you take insurance policy against fire to cover your lovely home. So you have money, you decide to take insurance to cover that home. And since you are a busy business person, right? You are out there in some other part of the country making business deals. And then there's a fire, okay? So there's an accident, fire, whatever, the house burns. Now your friend, since they like you, and since you don't want to be living with your siblings, so your friend decides to, go after the insurance company because they're thinking, look, this particular insurance company is delaying with the policy, and I know law, and I have these nice lawyers, and so I'm just going to sue the insurance company to fix this house quickly because, he's also living there, or she's living there, okay? So basically they're living there, and they need the thing done. So the question is, do you think your friend is going to win that case against the insurance company? All right, the truth is your friend is not going to win. Okay, that's the truth. Your friend is not going to win. And why is that? So this example is the basis of privity doctrine. In fact, the doctrine of privity means that a contract cannot, as a general rule, confer rights or impose obligations arising under it on any party except the parties to it. Which is just a long way of saying, if you're going to benefit from any contract, okay? If you're going to benefit from a contract, you have to be privy. You have to be part of that contract. So then you can sue, you can be sued, you can benefit. You're part of the contract. Otherwise, if you're not part of the contract, you're not going to benefit from that contract. And of course, there are exceptions to this rule, which we shall look at later. But for now, I want you to remember that. Here's another example. At the time when the law did not restrict resale price maintenance, Dunlop, who are wholesale tire manufacturers, sold tires to X under a contract whereby X undertook not to sell the tires below Dunlop's list prices and agreed, as Dunlop's agent, not to obtain a similar undertaking from other traders. X sold to Selfridge, who agreed with X not to sell below Dunlop's list prices. They broke this contract and Dunlop sued for this breach. What do you really think is going to happen there? In fact, here's the thing. So you have, let's just pick some things here. So you have this guy who gets into a contract with this other person. And I'm running out of things to use here. So let's assume these are people, right? So you have this guy selling tires, and he sells the tire to this person, okay? The blue part, whatever color that is. And the agreement between these two is, look, I'm selling you these tires at this price. Please don't sell them below that price. Why? Because you don't know. Maybe they're just trying to maintain a certain status in the market, right? So this guy agrees, okay? And so he goes ahead and sells the tire to this other person, all right? And okay, these are the deals. So if you're selling this tire, don't sell them below this price. And this person, okay, person number 3, is like, they sell the tires to another person. I'm running out of things to use here, so we'll use this one. So they sell the tire to this other person, right? But then they sell it below the agreed price, the price that was agreed in the first contract. So now that has happened, this original guy, the original guy comes back and is like, now he's suing person number 3. Like, why did you sell these tires at that price? So we have A, who had a contract with B, and B got into a contract with C, C got into a contract with D, but then C violated the terms that A had with B, and so A decides to sue. So the question is, do you think they are going to win? So in this case, what do you think is going to happen? Well, here's how it was held in the court. There was no contract between Dunlop and Selfridge. Remember, Selfridge is the third person, right? And even assuming that X, okay, was the agent of Dunlop, when you obtained the price maintenance stipulation from Selfridge, Dunlop could not enforce the contract because no consideration moved from them. That is the thing there in Dunlop Pneumatic Tire Company Limited v. Selfridge. That rule just goes to show you that, yeah, well, in these contracts, strangers can just walk in and then demand certain rights from a contract. That's pretty much the idea. In fact, it's another simple idea, okay? This is a different business idea, or rather a simple example to further drive that point home, assuming you did understand it, which I'm sure you did, but, you know, another example. So in this case, Peter, a coal merchant, entered into a written contract with his nephew John, whereby Peter sold his business to John. The contract provided that after the death of Peter, the nephew would pay the widow, so in this case, Peter's wife, who was not part of the agreement, an annuity of $5 a week. So Peter died and the nephew refused to pay her. So in this case, it was held that the widow could not enforce the obligation in a personal capacity as she was not a party to the contract. Here's the thing I need you to understand. If, okay, just because you get into like a deal, okay, with somebody saying that if I die, I want you to give my wife this amount of money, and your wife isn't part of that deal, see, she can't enforce that on a personal capacity as who? As the wife. But if she becomes your administratrix, okay, remember there is an administrator who is the person who represents the deceased, executing the will and things of that nature. If they are male, if they are female, it's administratrix, okay? So if that is what they're doing, they're enforcing your personal, you know, your will, your wishes after death, then you see they can force that person to make good of that deal. But otherwise, ignoring that, they are not part of that contract and therefore they can't. So the same goes with like taking insurance for your employees, and then the employees, like having an insurance covering your employees, and then the employees deciding to sue the insurance company. They still won't win because they are not part of that deal. So that is a thing with this privity doctrine. The idea is just people in the contract can sue and benefit in that contract. Basically, they can benefit, whether the benefit is a result of a lawsuit or enforcing some obligations and stuff. Right. So are there exceptions to this doctrine? Yeah, there are. So let's talk about those ones. So speaking of exceptions to the doctrine of privity, look, take something like real estate, okay? Now in real estate, what happens? Let's say you're dealing with an agent. So like this place here, right? So you're dealing with an agent. You've never really met the landlord, or in this case, the landlord is the principal. So you're the client. You sign a contract with this real estate agent to live in a house, whether it's a rental or whatever it is. But let's assume it's a rental, right? Because now we want the relationship to be, ongoing. There is a rental. You're paying rent. You've never met your landlord, but you've been meeting these agents. If there is an issue and you decide to sue the owner of that building, the landlord, do you think they're going to say, look, I never met you, okay? I was not even part of, I don't even know why you people are, getting into that deal. No, they can't, because it will be like, look, this guy represented you in that deal. They're your agent, and therefore you're bound in as much as your name probably doesn't even appear here, or you're not here, whatever the case, okay? Yeah, of course, I do get there are some scenarios that can change things when you're dealing with undisclosed principals, okay? That is the law of agency. But the idea is just to show you that, yes, there are scenarios where someone, okay, or a third party who's not part of a contract can still end up becoming part of that contract. Either they can suffer loss, they can be sued, and all that stuff. So the exceptions here to the privity doctrine will include things like, number one, if the law, for example, Retail Price Act or Consumer Protection Act, controls price and you go against it. Now look, what you're saying is that in some cases you have these laws that set ceiling and floor prices that you cannot go above, prices that you cannot come below. So if you get into a contract with somebody, like I'm selling this thing, and the law is trying to protect farmers, so they say per kg of this particular produce, okay, or this whatever it is, can't be sold below this price. Why? Because you're trying to protect farmers. Okay? And then you decide to sell it below that price because you're trying to make quick money. So you see, in that case, because we have that law, then, they can't just come after you and then you're going to be like, no, but the contract is between me, the seller, and the buyer. They'll be like, no, we are a third party, we are here, and we are going to stop that contract. So you just check in your country which bodies tend to regulate things like prices. Anyway, number 2, in a contract made by an agent, the principal can be sued, and we've talked about that. And number 3, if the contract constitutes a trust, meaning what? Meaning a trust fund is created on behalf of the beneficiary. All right. So you see that beneficiary, in as much as they're the third party, they can still sue. In fact, is an example of that. So let's say John promises Jane that out of the money he owes her, he will pay Jack, who is Jane's brother, and informs Jack about this. Later, John refuses to pay back, and Jack decides to sue him. So you see, in this case, Jack is actually going to win, all right? Because these trusts, okay, even though there wasn't really some money at that particular part, but there was an obligation created in which he was supposed to benefit as the beneficiary in that scenario. So you see, a trust fund was created, and so Jack wins that case. Anyway, number next, in restrictive covenants. A restrictive covenant is actually a negative term that you find mostly in a property. Like, you can go to a place and then they say, if you buy land here, then you can only build up to a certain level, or there are certain types of houses that you don't allow here. Like, you can buy land and then they say, we only allow single family homes here. So now you can make your house and it has like 5 bedrooms, as long as it's just you living there. That's a single family home. 10, who cares? But you can't start doing flats and apartments in this area. So you see, there's a restrictive covenant. Now your argument might be, okay, hold on, I wasn't there when you guys were agreeing to this, plus I've bought land, plus it's my land, and I have title deed, and it's like, no, you are going to abide by the rules. There is a restrictive covenant, which was created by person 1 and person 2, and you aren't even there, and now it's affecting you, and that's an exception to the doctrine of privity. Okay, scenarios where third parties can be affected by things that were created by other people, and they're not even part of that contract. So look, privity, okay, just means being part of the contract. And then if you're in part of the contract, generally you can't benefit from that contract. But if the exceptions we've just talked about apply, then you can benefit from that contract. Now, if you have a question, you ask, okay, again, that's the idea, all right? So let's move on to the next thing.